The void of space held many secrets, but Marcus Harrison never expected to discover one quite like this. His survey vessel, the Stellar Horizon, spun wildly through the atmosphere of an uncharted planet, warning lights flashing across his console like a demented Christmas display. Come on, he muttered, fingers dancing across the controls. The ship's hull screamed in protest as he fought for control, but the planet's unusual magnetic field had other plans. With a final desperate attempt at stabilization, Marcus braced himself as the ground rushed up to meet him. The crash wasn't as bad as it could have been, he was still breathing, after all. Marcus pulled himself from the wreckage, his environmental suit automatically adjusting to the planet's atmosphere. The air was breathable, if a bit thick with an oddly sweet scent. Violet grass swayed beneath twin moons, and crystalline trees sparkled in the twilight. He had just finished assessing the damage to his ship when he heard it, a sound like wind through silk, but darker, more purposeful. Marcus turned slowly, his hand instinctively moving to the pulse pistol at his hip. They emerged from the crystal forest like living shadows. Tall, graceful figures with skin the color of twilight and eyes that gleamed like distant stars. All female, all armed, and all staring at him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. Their leader stepped forward, her movements liquid smooth. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, with intricate markings swirling across her exposed arms and face. A crown of living crystal adorned her head, pulsing softly with inner light. "I am Queen Varina of the Solarian people," she announced, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance that seemed to bypass his ears and speak directly to his mind. "You have entered our domain, stranger." Marcus swallowed hard, keeping his hands visible and away from his weapon. "Marcus Harrison, Deep Space Surveyor from Earth. I apologize for the intrusion, my ship was caught in your planet's magnetic field." Queen Varina's lips curved into what might have been a smile, but there was something predatory in it. "A surveyor? How convenient. We so rarely get visitors here on Nexus. Those who do find us tend to have rather short stays." A warrior to the Queen's right shifted, and Marcus caught a glimpse of sharp teeth behind her lips. He forced himself to remain calm, though his heart was racing. "I mean no harm. Once I repair my ship, I'll be on my way." "Repair your ship?" Queen Varina's laugh was like crystal wind chimes in a storm. "Oh, my dear Marcus, I'm afraid it's not that simple. You see, we Solarians have certain needs. And you." Her eyes raked over him appraisingly, "You positively radiate with potential." Before Marcus could respond, another figure emerged from the group. She was shorter than the Queen but moved with the same deadly grace. Her armor was different from the others, marked with symbols of rank. "My Queen," she said, her voice carrying a hint of challenge, "perhaps we should test this one before making any decisions." The last Outlanders proved disappointing. Queen Varina's eyes narrowed slightly. "You speak out of turn, Captain Lyra, but you are not wrong." "Very well." She turned back to Marcus. "What say you, Surveyor? Will you submit to our testing, or shall we end this encounter now?" Marcus's mind raced. The threat in her words was clear, but there was something else here, something he wasn't seeing. These beings were advanced, sophisticated, their behavior seemed almost ritualistic. And Captain Lyra's intervention, was it possible she had just bought him time? "I accept your test," he said firmly, meeting Queen Varina's star-filled eyes. "Though I'd appreciate knowing what I'm being tested for." The Queen's smile widened, showing teeth that gleamed like polished opals. "Oh, you'll find out soon enough. Captain Lyra, escort our guest to the holding chambers. And do make sure he's comfortable." As Captain Lyra approached him, Marcus caught a glimpse of something in her expression, concern. Warning. Before he could analyze it further, she had grabbed his arm. Her touch sent a strange tingling sensation through his body, like static electricity but deeper, more profound. "This way, Outlander," she said, her grip firm but not painful. And a word of advice, whatever you think you know about survival, forget it. The rules are different here. As Marcus was led away from his ruined ship toward a city that gleamed like a constellation brought to Earth, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled into something far bigger than a simple crash landing. The way these beings looked at him, the energy that seemed to crackle in the air around them, the strange resonance in their voices. He glanced at Captain Lyra, noting how her twilight-colored skin seemed to absorb and reflect light in impossible ways. She caught his look and raised an eyebrow. "Eyes forward, Outlander," she commanded, but there was something almost like amusement in her tone. "You'll need all your wits about you for what comes next." Behind them, Queen Varina watched their departure, her crystal crown pulsing in sync with some hidden rhythm. "Interesting," she murmured to herself. "Very interesting indeed." The holding chamber was nothing like Marcus expected. Instead of a prison cell, he found himself in a spacious room with walls that seemed to be made of living crystal, pulsing with soft, bioluminescent light. The furniture was elegant, if alien in design, crafted from what appeared to be a mixture of crystalline growths and some sort of metallic material. Captain Lyra stood at the doorway, watching him with those star-filled eyes. "The Queen will summon you when the first trial begins. Until then, rest. You'll need your strength." "Wait," Marcus called as she turned to leave. "What exactly are these trials? What am I being tested for?" Lyra paused, her twilight skin shifting with patterns of light. "We Solarians are particular about who we allow to live among us. Those who cannot contribute to our society in meaningful ways are disposed of." The way she said "disposed of" sent a chill down Marcus's spine. "And what constitutes a meaningful contribution? That's what the trials will determine." Her expression softened slightly. "Though I suggest you prepare yourself for something unlike anything you've experienced before." After she left, Marcus examined his surroundings more carefully. The room was comfortable but alien in ways that went beyond mere aesthetics. The air itself seemed charged with energy, making his skin tingle. He ran his hand along one of the crystal walls, feeling an odd resonance, almost like a heartbeat. Hours later, a low tone reverberated through the chamber. The door dissolved into light, revealing Captain Lyra and two other Solarian warriors. "It's time," she announced. They led him through corridors that seemed to be grown rather than built, everything pulsing with that same strange bioluminescence. Finally, they emerged into a vast circular arena. The stands were filled with Solarian women, their skin creating a twilight rainbow as they moved and shifted. Queen Varina sat on a floating throne of crystal, looking down at him with amused interest. "Marcus Harrison of Earth," her voice resonated through the arena. "Your first trial begins now. Show us your worth." Before Marcus could ask what that meant, the floor beneath him began to change. The solid crystal became liquid-like, and he found himself sinking up to his knees. Panic threatened to overtake him, but he forced it down, analyzing the situation with the calm detachment that had kept him alive during his years of deep space exploration. The liquid crystal was warm, almost pleasant, but he could feel it trying to draw something from him, energy, life force, something fundamental to his being. Around the edges of the arena, several Solarian warriors had collapsed, their skin dulled and lifeless. "The crystal pool seeks essence," Queen Varina's voice echoed. "Most Outlanders are drained within moments. Let us see how long you last." Marcus felt the pull strengthening, trying to draw out his vital energy. But there was something else happening too, where the crystal touched his skin, he could feel a resonance, a harmony between his own bioelectric field and the strange energy of this world. Instead of fighting the drain, he relaxed into it, letting his energy flow but directing it, shaping it. The crystal around him began to glow brighter, taking on a golden hue that spread outward in ripples. Gasps echoed through the arena. Even Queen Varina leaned forward on her throne, her eyes widening. "Impossible," one of the warriors whispered. Captain Lyra watched from the sidelines, her expression unreadable but intense. He's not just resisting, she said loud enough for others to hear. He's connecting with it. Marcus began to move, finding that he could now control the crystal liquid around him. With each step, the substance shifted from trying to drain him to responding to his will. The golden light spread further, and the fallen warriors at the arena's edge began to stir, their color returning. Enough. Queen Varina's command cracked through the air like lightning. The liquid crystal receded, leaving Marcus standing on solid ground once more. He swayed slightly but remained upright, his skin still glowing faintly. The queen descended from her throne, approaching him with a mixture of curiosity and something that might have been concern. In all our history, no outlander has ever. She paused, studying him more closely. What are you? Just a human, Marcus replied, his voice hoarse but steady. Though I'm starting to think there's more to your people than you're letting on. This isn't just about testing visitors, is it? You're looking for something specific. Queen Varina's laugh held less amusement this time. Clever as well as resilient. Yes, Marcus Harrison, we seek something very specific. Something our people desperately need. She turned to Captain Lyra. Take him to the resonance chamber. It seems we must accelerate the trials. As Lyra led him away, Marcus noticed the other Solarians watching him with new expressions, hope, fear, and in some cases, hunger. Whatever these trials were really about, he had a feeling he'd just changed the game significantly. You should have died in there, Lyra said quietly as they walked. Or at least been rendered unconscious like the others. Sorry to disappoint, Marcus replied. Oh, you haven't disappointed at all, she said, and for the first time, he saw a genuine smile cross her face. In fact, you may be exactly what we've been waiting for. Though whether that's good news for you remains to be seen. As they approached the resonance chamber, Marcus could feel the energy in the air intensifying. Whatever came next would make the crystal pool look like a warm-up exercise. But he had survived the first trial, and more importantly, he had learned something crucial: the Solarians weren't just testing him. They were searching for something they believed he might possess. The question was, what would they do with him once they found it? The resonance chamber made the crystal pool look primitive by comparison. The entire room was alive with energy, patterns of light dancing across surfaces that seemed to exist somewhere between solid and liquid. The air itself felt charged, making Marcus's hair stand on end. The chamber will forge a direct connection between your essence and our collective consciousness, Queen Varina explained, her crystal crown pulsing with increasing intensity. If you survive, we'll have our answer. And if I don't survive? Marcus asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Then you'll have served your purpose regardless, she replied with that predatory smile. Captain Lyra stepped forward. My queen, perhaps I should monitor the connection. My resonance training. You overstep again, Captain, Varina cut her off sharply. I will conduct this trial personally. She turned to Marcus. Remove your protective suit. The connection must be direct. As Marcus stripped down to his basic clothing, he caught Lyra watching him with what seemed like genuine concern. There was definitely more going on here than a simple test of worthiness. The moment he stepped into the center of the chamber, the energy hit him like a physical force. It was different from the crystal pool. This wasn't trying to drain him, it was trying to merge with him. He could feel thousands of consciousness brushing against his mind, all connected through some vast psychic network. Queen Varina's voice echoed both in his ears and inside his head. For millennia, the Solarian people have evolved beyond the need for physical sustenance. We feed on energy itself, the vital essence of living beings. But our power comes with a price. Images flooded Marcus's mind, the Solarians long ago, a society of both males and females. Then something changed. Their power grew, but the men began to wither, unable to withstand the increasing energy demands of their evolved females. We didn't mean to kill them, Varina's voice held a trace of old sorrow. But once the change began, we couldn't stop it. Now we must find our sustenance elsewhere, drawing energy from whatever sources we can find. Most visitors barely last a day before they're drained completely. Marcus gritted his teeth against the increasing pressure. So that's what this is about. You're looking for a compatible energy source. Someone who can withstand your feeding. Yes, Varina admitted. But you're different. Your energy, it resonates with ours in a way we've never seen before. You don't just resist the drain, you enhance it, strengthen it. With you, we might finally. She broke off as something unexpected happened. The energy flowing between them suddenly reversed. Instead of Varina drawing power from Marcus, he began pulling energy from the chamber itself. The patterns of light bent toward him, and he could feel the vast network of Solarian consciousness recoiling in shock. Impossible. Varina's voice cracked with alarm. No one can redirect the resonance. But Marcus could. More than that, he could feel the fundamental nature of their power now. It wasn't just about feeding on energy, it was about connection, about the flow and exchange of life force itself. The Solarians hadn't evolved to be predators, they'd evolved to be conduits. Stop this. Varina commanded, actual fear in her voice now. Guards. Wait. Captain Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. Look. The energy Marcus had drawn in was flowing back out, but transformed somehow. Where it touched the Solarians, their skin began to glow with new patterns, more vibrant and stable than before. The constant hunger he'd sensed in their collective consciousness began to ease. He's not just containing the energy, Lyra said in wonder. He's purifying it, making it self-sustaining. Marcus focused on maintaining the flow, understanding now what made him different. Humans hadn't evolved to manipulate energy like the Solarians, but they had evolved to adapt, to transform, to find balance in extremes. His very nature was acting as a filter, a stabilizer for their power. The chamber's energy gradually settled into a steady rhythm, no longer chaotic and hungry but smooth and sustained. Marcus opened his eyes to find every Solarian in the room staring at him with expressions ranging from awe to fear to desperate hope. Queen Varina had fallen to her knees, her crystal crown now pulsing in sync with the chamber's new rhythm. All this time, she whispered, we thought we needed to take, to consume. But what we really needed was balance. Marcus finished for her, understanding at last. Your people didn't evolve wrong, Your Majesty. You just lost half of the equation. But maybe there's a way to restore it. Captain Lyra stepped forward, her eyes shining. The prophecies spoke of a catalyst, one who would help us remember what we'd forgotten. We thought it meant a perfect source of energy, but it meant a teacher, Varina said softly. Someone to show us how to use our power without being consumed by it. She looked at Marcus with new eyes, the predatory hunger replaced by something closer to respect. But before anyone could say more, alarms began blaring throughout the complex. One of the guards rushed in, her skin pulsing with urgent patterns. My queen. The crystal heart, something's happening. The changes in the resonance chamber, they're affecting the entire network. Marcus felt it too, the transformation he'd started was spreading, threatening to overwhelm the Solarians' entire energy infrastructure. What had begun as a revelation was about to become a revolution, and not everyone would welcome the change. The real test was just beginning. The crystal heart of the Solarian city pulsed with chaotic energy, its usual steady rhythm disrupted by waves of golden light. Marcus, Captain Lyra, and Queen Varina raced through corridors that were rapidly shifting between solid and liquid states as the city's power grid struggled to adapt to the changes. The heart connects everything, Lyra explained as they ran. Every crystal, every energy conduit, every Solarian consciousness. If it destabilizes, the entire city could collapse, Varina finished grimly. And with it, our whole civilization. They burst into the heart chamber, a vast spherical space dominated by a massive crystalline structure that seemed to be made of pure light. Around its base, several Solarian technicians worked frantically at control interfaces, their skin flickering with distress patterns. "Report," Varina commanded. One of the technicians turned, her face etched with panic. "The heart is rejecting its old programming, my queen. The new energy pattern that the Outlander introduced, it's spreading too quickly. Some sectors are adapting, but others are fighting the change. The system is tearing itself apart." Marcus studied the heart, seeing how the golden energy he'd generated was clashing with the original purple-hued power. "It's like an autoimmune response," he muttered. "The old system is attacking the new one, seeing it as a threat. Can you stop it?" Lyra asked, her hand gripping his arm. The touch sent sparks of energy between them, but now it felt less draining and more complementary. Before Marcus could respond, new voices echoed through the chamber. "Stop it." "Oh, we intend to." A group of Solarian warriors emerged from the shifting walls, led by a tall figure Marcus hadn't seen before. Her armor was ancient, covered in symbols that pulsed with angry red light. "High Priestess Nyx," Varina said, her voice tight. "I should have known you'd interfere." "Interfere?" Nyx's laugh was like breaking crystal. "I am trying to save us. This Outlander's corruption would destroy everything we've built, everything we are. Everything we were forced to become," Lyra countered, stepping forward. "The old records speak of a time when we lived in harmony with energy, not as parasites feeding on it. What Marcus showed us in the resonance chamber is an abomination." Nyx spat. "Our evolution made us superior to all other species. We do not need to change, we need to embrace our true nature as the apex predators of the galaxy." The heart pulsed violently, sending waves of conflicting energy through the chamber. Marcus could feel both patterns fighting for dominance, the old hungry, consuming force and his new sustainable flow. The entire city groaned around them. "You're wrong," Marcus said quietly, but his voice carried through the chamber. "Your people didn't evolve to be predators. You evolved to be conduits, channels for energy to flow through and be transformed. The hunger, the need to consume, that's not your true nature. It's a corruption, mutation caused by losing half of your spiritual ecosystem when the males died out." "Pretty words from prey," Nyx sneered, raising her weapon. "But we'll stick with what works. Kill him, and the old pattern will reassert itself." What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Nyx's warriors fired their energy weapons, but Lyra threw herself in front of Marcus, her body acting as a conductor. Instead of harming either of them, the energy began to flow between them, amplifying and transforming. Marcus understood suddenly what he had to do. He grabbed Lyra's hand and reached out toward the crystal heart with his other. "Trust me," he whispered. Lyra's grip tightened. "Always." Together, they became a circuit, channeling energy between themselves and the heart. The golden light spread faster now, but smoother, more controlled. Where before it had been fighting the old pattern, now it was merging with it, creating something new. Queen Varina watched in amazement as the light reached her, transformed her. Her crystal crown shattered, replaced by a corona of pure energy that matched the new rhythm. One by one, the other Solarians in the chamber underwent similar transformations, all except Nyx and her followers, who backed away in horror. "What have you done?" Nyx demanded. "Showed them the truth," Marcus said, still holding Lyra's hand. "Your people don't need to consume energy to survive. You need to cycle it, transform it. And for that, you need partnership, not predation." The heart's light had stabilized now, pulsing with a new pattern that combined the best of both old and new. Through his connection with Lyra, Marcus could feel the change spreading throughout the city, bringing balance where there had been hunger, harmony where there had been conflict. Nyx raised her weapon again, but found herself alone. Her followers had lowered their arms, their skin beginning to shimmer with the new patterns. "It's over, Nyx," Varina said softly. "Look around you. Feel the difference. We are becoming what we were always meant to be. The high priestess looked from face to face, seeing the transformation in her people. Finally, her weapon clattered to the floor. What happens now? Marcus looked at Lyra, seeing his own future reflected in her star-filled eyes. Now, he said, we build something new. Together. 3 months after the transformation of the Crystal Heart, the city of the Solarians bore little resemblance to the predatory society Marcus had first encountered. The crystal structures still pulsed with light, but now they sang with harmonious energy rather than hungry resonance. Marcus stood on a balcony overlooking the central plaza, watching Solarians and a small but growing number of other species mingling below. The first diplomatic missions had arrived 2 weeks ago, drawn by the mysterious signals of transformed energy that now emanated from the planet. Still wondering if you made the right choice? Lyra's voice came from behind him, followed by the familiar tingle of her energy field merging with his. About staying? Marcus turned to face her, admiring how her twilight skin shimmered with the new, balanced patterns. Not for a second. The changes had been profound. Once the new energy pattern had stabilized, the Solarians discovered they could share their power rather than just consume it. The constant hunger that had driven them for generations faded, replaced by a sustainable cycle of energy exchange. Queen Verena had stepped down from absolute rule, establishing a council that included representatives from all sectors of society, even former dissenters like Nyx, who had ultimately embraced the change with the fervor of a convert. The former high priestess now led efforts to rewrite their historical records, documenting both the fall and resurrection of their true nature. The Earth delegation arrives tomorrow, Lyra said, moving to stand beside him. Are you ready? Marcus nodded. They need to understand what we've discovered here. The potential for human-Solarian cooperation goes way beyond anything we imagined. Your people's ability to channel and transform energy, combined with human adaptability. He trailed off, grinning. We might just revolutionize interstellar travel. Among other things, Lyra agreed, her fingers intertwining with his. Their energy fields danced together, creating small auroras in the air around them. What had once been a draining connection was now a source of mutual strength. Below them, the Crystal Heart pulsed with steady rhythm, its light now a perfect blend of Solarian purple and human gold. The city had been rebuilt around the new energy pattern, its structures designed to facilitate cooperation rather than consumption. There is one small problem we still need to address, Lyra said, her tone suddenly serious. Marcus tensed. Oh. The human delegation will want to know how we plan to handle future relationships between our species. Particularly given our unique situation. Marcus relaxed, laughing. You mean they'll want to know if I'm being held captive by a race of energy vampire Amazons? Or if I've gone native and can't be trusted? Something like that. Lyra's eyes sparkled with amusement. Though I prefer the term energy symbiotes now. Well, Marcus said, pulling her closer, they'll just have to accept that sometimes the best diplomatic solutions are also personal ones. Their kiss sent ripples of energy through the nearby crystals, creating a light show that drew appreciative looks from those below. Neither of them noticed, too absorbed in their own private resonance. Later that evening, during the council meeting, Marcus presented his final report on the transformation. The chamber was packed with Solarians, their skin patterns shifting in sync as they listened. The key was never about finding a compatible energy source, he explained. It was about remembering how to be conduits rather than consumers. The Solarian people didn't evolve wrong, they just lost their way for a while. And sometimes it takes an outside perspective to help you find your path again. Queen Verena, now first speaker of the council, nodded in agreement. And in helping us, you've opened up possibilities we never imagined. Our scientists report that the new energy pattern could revolutionize everything from space travel to terraforming. Assuming Earth agrees to a full alliance, former High Priestess Nyx added. She had traded her warrior's armor for scholars' robes, though they still bore the ancient symbols, now pulsing with golden light. They'll agree, Marcus said confidently. Because we're offering something no one else can, a true partnership. Not just between individuals, but between species. As if to emphasize his point, the crystal heart pulsed strongly, sending waves of harmonious energy throughout the city. Marcus felt Lyra's hand slip into his, their personal energy fields merging automatically. Besides, he added with a smile, how could they resist? We've got one hell of a story to tell. The chamber filled with laughter, a sound that would have been unthinkable in the old days of hunger and predation. Marcus looked around at these beings who had become his people as much as humans were. They had transformed from feared predators into something new, something that combined the best of both species. As the meeting concluded and the council members filed out, Lyra pulled Marcus aside. You know, she said, her voice playful, when you crashed here, I never imagined we'd end up changing our entire civilization. No regrets. Only that we didn't find you sooner. She pressed her forehead to his, their energy fields creating a miniature aurora around them. Though I suppose some things are worth waiting millennia for. Above them, the twin moons of Nexus cast their light through the crystal spires of the city, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the buildings. The hungry darkness that had once defined this world was gone, replaced by a luminous future built on understanding, adaptation, and love. Marcus Harrison, who had arrived as a crashed surveyor and became a catalyst for change, finally felt truly home. In the end, it wasn't about fear or power or even survival. It was about finding balance, between species, between energies, and between hearts. And that was a story worth telling indeed.